This week, pharmaceutical giants are under the spotlight as they report earnings amid looming U.S. tariff threats. President Trump's administration is considering a 25% tariff on imported pharmaceuticals, which could raise U.S. drug costs by nearly $51 billion annually. Companies like Pfizer, AstraZeneca, and Novartis reported results earlier today, while Eli Lilly is among others due to announce later in the week. I'm Johanna Bota, and joining me today is StoneX's Senior Market Analyst, Fiona Cincotta. Fiona, thank you for joining us remotely.
Thank you for having me.
So let's start with Pfizer, who reported earnings that beat Wall Street expectations today. Now, they said, quote, they are unable to predict tariff-related impacts at this time. So how do you see the potential impact of upcoming tariffs on their long-term growth?
Yeah, so Pfizer didn't detail any potential hit to its business. It also said that guidance doesn't account for any potential tariffs. But interestingly, competitors such as Johnson & Johnson, American Co. have warned of a potential hit to profits of hundreds of millions. So I think it is fair to assume that we could see a hit to both top and bottom line growth. However, how hard that hit is and how long lasting it is very much depends on the flexibility of Pfizer's manufacturing and supply chain, how quickly, how flexible it can to be able to shift supply chains and manufacturing towards the US in order to avoid the steepest worst case scenario for tariffs.
If they come or when they come. So let's move over to AstraZeneca now, who posted a 10% rise in the first quarter revenue to $13.6 billion. Now, they said that they are firmly committed to investing in the U.S. with plans to expand beyond its existing 11 production sites, and they have pledged $3.5 billion in investments by 2026. Now, they are also increasing their presence in China by building a new R&D facility in Beijing. So with AstraZeneca expanding both in the U.S. and China, how is the company balancing geopolitical risk with its long-term strategy?
Yeah, completely. So this is a company, it really does have one foot in the east and one foot in the west. US is a really key market for AstraZeneca. In this current quarter, we saw 42% of revenue come from the US. They're planning on expanding that to 50% by 2030. But as you mentioned, at the same time, we've also seen this big investment in China, 2.5 billion. So again, a very sizable investment. And I think that just also highlights the importance of the Chinese market to AstraZeneca as well. Now, obviously, AstraZeneca is not the only company that's going to be sort of trying to walk that fine tightrope of balancing the East with the West. Obviously, Tesla is another fine example of a company which is trying to balance Trump's tariffs against demand or potentially weakening demand in China. So it's not going to be an easy ride, but it is one that AstraZeneca clearly has showed that it is very committed to with such great investments in either country.
And what do you think will happen if Trump does impose tariffs on pharmaceuticals? What's it going to do to the healthcare system in the U.S.?
So America imports around 203 billion in pharmaceutical products. So around 73% of those come from Europe. So if we do see these 25% tariffs go ahead, it's going to be a large increase in cost, potentially at around 51 billion. That would lift the US price of drugs by about 12.9% if that got passed on to the consumer. Now, that obviously is going to be a worry. I mean, how much of that companies will be able to pass on is still very much unknown, but that would be a concern for the consumer. It would be concern for the health system in general in the US, and what that would actually mean is to higher costs, lower availability potentially for these drugs until we get that reorganization of these supply chains, of the manufacturing, in which case after that period, then we could see the problem ease slightly.
And what's your expert analysis? Do you think investors should be careful of the sector in general, given that tariffs are coming?
Yeah, I mean, broadly speaking, it's very difficult to be selecting sectors right now. I mean, given the amount of uncertainty that there is, to do with Trump's tariffs, when they're going to be applied, if they're going to be applied, will they be walked back? So it's an absolute minefield for traders and investors right now. But I think there is caution definitely to be had when looking at the pharmaceutical sector. I mean, there are potentially other sectors, such as other defensive sectors, which may be more, or may be perhaps slightly more comfortable areas to be investing in right now. But again, I think away from growth, which is an area that is very much under pressure, given the amount of uncertainty we had, I think pharmaceuticals, it would be better to wait until there's a little bit more clarity over what would be going on before getting in there. But I think, longer term, obviously, pharmaceuticals are a solid investment choice, but I do think we should just wait for a little bit more clarity first.
Clarity would be nice. Thank you, Fiona. And thank you for watching. For more financial content like this, please like and subscribe to our channel. See you then.